Okay, so now we want to commence with the blending process of our sketch that we made earlier. So let's start with the darkest colors, and just to start smoothing out the transitions. We can cover a little of the sketch, so it's not a problem, but remember where it was placed, and also if we cover it with darker paint, it will also be a little visible from underneath. So this is a cool guide for us. So you can see that it's just brush strokes with the side of the brush, just to cover a larger surface. I'm diluting the paint just a little. I will show you in a moment when I take more paint. If you encounter the residue of brush strokes, the texture of the brush stroke, as always you can alternate the direction of the brush strokes so they will overlap and it won't be that visible. Okay. So I'm taking a little water thinner and taking some paint. Let's just use brighter colors. So. Okay, here we can go back a little to the deepest shade, so just separate the elements. Also a little shade here and under the material fold. At this point we can start caring about the details, how everything is placed accurately. So take your time, don't rush it. There will be also a lot of shade close to her, to the seat, and also here under the burnt material. can see that it's just highlighting, just making it a little brighter with every mixture of paint. Now we can show this part that is, start to work on this part that is closer to the main body. So on this jacket there will be a lot of work with darker tones, because we want to keep it just dark with some highlights in the places that are just reflecting more light, but we don't want the whole jacket to be very bright and also yellowish. We want it to be brown. Now let's use brighter colors, and now let's focus on the line. So I will start on just highlighting everything in this line, every fold, and sometimes we can accent just places like this, but it's very important to have this in mind, because most of the light will be visible here, not the places that there should be more shadow. So even at this point we can overpaint the sketch that we made, because this paint will be more saturated, more visible here. So you can see that it's slowly taking shape. The brighter colors will be used just in small places, just to mark the highlights, but most of the base tone will be finished. So also here in those places, those deep folds, we want to make them a little brighter because we want to show the general shape of the hand. Painting this arm, this material, and showing all very deep shadows in all those folds would make it just look separated. It would make it just look unnatural. We would lose the general geometric shape of the hand. That's very important to have in mind. So just sometimes we can just make brighter shades, not that deep ones. In this case would be something like this. And also you can see that from this color to this color there's a lot of contrast still, but if you would use very deep shadows then it would look unnatural. So in the places that there is more light, the shadows will be just brighter. The next thing to remember, as earlier planned, we want to keep as much light on the upper part of her body, and the lower part should be a little darker. Maybe we could add a small spotlight here to show that she's holding the steer of the plane, but in general the shoulder and her breast should be brighter than the final highlights in this place. mark a little something darker, just to mark those parts. It also goes the other way around. In places that there is more shadow, all the highlights should be just darker. So we want to move and switch depending where the surface that we are painting is placed, how much light will it catch. It will always change. So now let's paint with something brighter, just to start adding more highlights. But this time we will try to limit the surface that we are highlighting. So if you want, at this point you can start, if you want to generate some textures, you can start adding some irregularities in your painting. Just maybe not always painting with the side of the brush, sometimes just small dots and scratches with the tip. If you do it constantly with every highlight, then it will be more natural. You won't see that those textures that strongly, but they will be there, and they will modify the whole appearance of the material. It's just as I shown on the short video about painting simple textures. Yeah, we can use it during painting, just alternating the brush stroke, sometimes adding small dots, sometimes small scratches, and sometimes just painting something smooth. Yeah? Here we want the texture to be very, very delicate, not that noticeable, so we don't want to overdo it. Sometimes you want to make big marks. Yeah? You can make big dots, strong scratches. Yeah? But it depends on the surface you are painting, and I encourage you to just look at reference photos of materials. This will help you a lot. Not only with picking colors, but just seeing how the real material looks. And the human eye is very accustomed to looking at just things in our reality. We don't think about it, but if you would paint something that is not similar, we would instinctively see that it's not realistic. Yeah, it's something is off. So it's better to just look at the reference photos and try to replicate it as best as you can. Not looking at artworks, not looking at how other people paint, but just looking at the reality. And in time also you can remember instinctively how to paint something like this. It goes with the repetition. Okay. We have this here. So let's add some more highlights. Probably I won't go to the final one. I don't want to go to this color because it probably will be too bright. This color you could use if the letter was a little worn, a little destroyed, and the inside of the material would be more visible. because it's torn or something, but here we want to stay painting with bronzes, because we just want to highlight it. You can see that we can add some small dots here, just to make it more textured. You can see that I'm concentrating on the more parts that are visible, that are sticking out. I'm not working on the shadows. At this point we have the whole shape of the hand is visible, so we can paint more of the highlights on the places that will catch just more light. If you overdo it, then you can just shade it a little with darker colors. It's not a problem. So even if the sculpt doesn't have it, we can add some small, very not noticeable material folds that show some additional details, and it's also cool. Also, if you want, at this point, we are painting only with just stronger highlights. You can, if you want to add more texture, you can add some dots, some scratches, something like this here and there. Of course, we can just paint it just more smooth, because that was the intention. But if you want to alternate to paint something different texture, just switch it a little. You can add some dots here and there. If you end up overdoing it, it's not a problem. Just go back to the color that was here, something like this. Just cover this. Just covered it with something maybe with mid-tone. It also will be visible, but it won't be that striking to the eye, and it also will add up. Too much water. So you can see that we want a big contrast. We want to show more contrast, so that's why I'm using just colors ranging from this to this color. So it's maybe not the maximum contrast from black to white, but it's very strong. Don't be afraid of using contrast on your miniatures. And also the main highlight line should be like here, so it's important to always show it with every highlight, just concentrating in this place. Okay, maybe just a little more here. So you can see that sometimes I'm just painting with the side of the brush, sometimes I'm just leaving small dots. I don't want to leave too many scratches. I don't want the material to be scratched, maybe to look like it's soft. But that's the only thing. And this one I will probably keep as a final highlight. I think highlighting in this part even more would be too much. The arm is almost ready. You can just smoothen out some transitions, because in some places it's not that smooth as I would want it to be. Okay, so you can see that the arm is almost ready. We can maybe just fix this place just a little and here to make it more round. But I think it's okay. Just maybe a little highlight here. Just smoothing it out, the transition. Also here. Because the folds will be catching a little more light. Yeah, but I think it's okay. So this is the arm. So now let's work on the torso, just on this side. So you can see that we have a final highlight here, yeah? But we want to connect it with the whole general shape of the shoulder, so here we also will be adding more light just to make show the whole line of the shoulder and the arm. So as you see, as always, even from the basic materials that I have shown you, it's very important to see geometrical shapes and miniatures, yeah? Because you know just how to place highlights, you know what you want to show. Also it's cool to show the small maybe edge of the material here. I think it can add more realism. I believe we have overdone with the highlights just by a little, so let's just blend the differences. We want to keep as much light in this part, not closer to this one. So just let's change it just a little. So you can see that it's starting to look similar. Yeah, we can see the general shape of the shoulder, and that's very important. So let's just add some final highlights and it should be ready, this part. Okay, and the last one. Okay, so you can see that the shape of the shoulder combines with the arm, and that's what we wanted. Maybe some here. Okay. So now let's walk around the body, maybe starting from the bottom. Can add even some stronger shadows under her breast. Also we can see small folds, like here, in this place, in this place. We want to show them, but just delicately. We can outline just a little the pocket on her jacket, and the lines that are combining some elements. And as I mentioned it earlier, I don't do it with black colors, just with dark, very dark colors of the surface that I'm painting. And if you even paint different surfaces, but you always will have very dark colors, and if they overlap each other, it will generate a line of separation for the element. You don't have to use black to do it. And also adding blue on the whole miniature to the shadows, it also helps with the lines of separation, because all of them are blue, very dark, but also a little blue. as I've told earlier, most of the pocket is obscured by the hand, but we want to highlight it just by little, probably to this color, just to show that it's there, just to show its the shape of the pocket. So you can see that I'm accenting out the small folds that are under her breast. It's important, it will add up later on, even if we don't highlight those places that much, but it will be seeable in the end. Here the shadows won't be that deep, so we want to paint it with this just a little lighter color. Something stronger, brighter. So on painting the pocket, we want to focus more light here than on the lower parts. Yeah, so we'll start highlighting maybe this one just a little more. So this fold will catch a little more light. And here. Maybe just a little here. Okay, let's start also start to add more highlight to those folds that I mentioned earlier. If you think that they are too visible, you can blend them in just a little. Okay, so we can see that it's not that visible. Those places won't focus that much light, but we want to show that the material is stretched over her breast and it generates some small material folds. mid-tone. Also, with each color now we will just trying to focus more on the upper part of the jacket. Yeah, we don't want to highlight the lower part that much. We don't want it to be it's obscured by the hand, and also she's sitting in a cockpit, so there will be more light just on the upper part of her body. Maybe just a little here, but that's all, because this fault will catch light. At this point I will cover the whole breast with this color. Because it's our mid-tone, something like a base tone, yeah? Because this is the main color of the jacket. Also, this fault here shouldn't have too deep shadows. Yeah, we want to just show it with more highlights than shadows. Yeah? Okay, so you can see that maybe this line that is combining the shadow isn't that well blended, so we can go back a little just to shade it a little and smoothen out the transition. Here we can of course alternate the brush strokes, so it will blend a little better. Just changing the direction, yeah? Because I've painted this way, now I'm painting this way. Okay, so now let's just add a little more of the mid-tone, and I think it should be okay. brighter tones. Maybe just a little here, some small dots. So we can at this point we can start just showing those folds that are upper, so that are above the breast, because they catch more light, and we can show them just by placing highlights compared to the mid-tone, and that's okay. The shadows here won't be that deep. And also the main highlight should be placed around here, something like this. We don't want it to be stretched more in this side. Because as we blend, the light is coming from her left side, and we want to represent this on the whole miniature. So you can see that we are placing only random dots, sometimes with the side of the brush, just for the highlights, yeah? Just to show a little of the texture. You can of course blend it just a little in a moment, but as I mentioned, here is the main part that will be illuminated by the light source, so here we should place more brighter colors. Yes, now we can go back to the darker shade, just to blend the surface and make a transition. So small highlights on the pocket. Okay, and now let's just add maybe 2 lighter hues, and that will be finished. Yeah, of course we can just blend it just a little. At this point we can maybe widen the highlights, because I think it was too much in one place. It should be a little wider, but just a little. So now let's start the final one. Paint got a little too thick by lying on the wet palette, so let's dilute it a little. Okay, so you can see that this part, this half of the jacket is finished. Yeah, we have a main highlight here, also a highlight on the pocket, and the main highlight on the arm. So I think now I can start working on the other part of the jacket, just to finish the whole surface.